In 1837, the United States had no central bank, no Federal Reserve, and no deposit insurance. The economy was running on over 1,600 different currencies simultaneously, all printed by private banks that sometimes didn't even have vaults. Most people assumed this was primitive chaos, a financial dark age that America had to evolve past. But the reality is that the system worked, sometimes terrifyingly well. The president who killed America's central bank did it so completely that no world leader has replicated the move since. What he discovered about money, power, and who the system actually serves was dangerous enough that it took 77 years and a global financial catastrophe to undo it. What we lost when we fixed it might be the most important economic story nobody tells. The free banking era began after Andrew Jackson vetoed the recharter of the Second Bank of the United States. Nicholas Biddle, the most powerful financier in America and a Philadelphia aristocrat who managed the most sophisticated financial institution in the Western Hemisphere, had lost. In the vacuum that followed, states started chartering their own banks. By 1860, roughly 1,600 state-chartered banks operated across the country, each issuing its own paper currency. You could travel from Cincinnati to Detroit and encounter dozens of different banknotes, each backed by a different institution's promise and each worth a different amount depending on who you asked. Some of these banks were legitimate, while others were legendary frauds. The term Wildcat Banks came from a specific practice. Banks on the Michigan frontier set up their vaults in remote locations deep in the woods where wild cats literally roamed. When state bank examiners traveled out to verify gold and silver reserves, the journey took so long that the bank could borrow coins from a neighboring county, display them to the examiner, and then ship those same coins ahead to the next bank on the examiner's route to be inspected again. It was a con, but here is what is rarely taught. The failure rate was brutal, and that was exactly the point. When a Wildcat Bank collapsed, the losses fell on the people holding that bank's notes, not on taxpayers or a public deposit insurance fund. The man who printed the bad money went broke, the man who trusted the bad money lost his savings, and everyone else walked away. This is called market discipline, and it is almost completely absent from modern finance. In 1842, when a bank in Mississippi failed after issuing notes far in excess of its reserves, the notes became worthless paper and the bank dissolved. Nobody in Washington organized a rescue or printed new money to cover the losses. Compare that to the 2008 financial crisis, where massive institutions were absorbed in government-brokered deals, while executives walked away with millions in severance. The Wildcat banker at least went broke alongside his depositors. This era generated private solutions to public problems. Because a system with 1,600 currencies creates friction, the market created its own stability. In New England, banks built the Suffolk banking system, a private interbank clearing network. The Suffolk Bank offered to redeem country banknotes at face value, but only if those banks maintained redemption deposits. If a bank refused to participate, Suffolk would collect their notes in bulk and present them for redemption in gold all at once, a polite financial ultimatum. The result was that New England banknotes traded closer to face value than anywhere else in America. This was a privately run monetary stability system with no legislation, no central authority, and no taxpayer guarantee, just aligned incentives. When the government didn't provide a regulator, the market provided information. Merchants and travelers carried counterfeit detectors, privately published booklets updated monthly that listed hundreds of known bank currencies, along with discount rates. If your Ohio banknotes traded at 97 cents on the dollar, the booklet told you. If a bank failed 3 months ago, the booklet flagged it. These publications, like Thomson's Banknote Reporter, provided the information infrastructure that allowed the ecosystem to function. The survival of these publishers depended on being right. The system was brutally efficient. A bank with a good reputation saw its notes trade near par. A bank with a bad reputation saw its notes discounted. The bank war that led to this era was a direct confrontation with the most fundamental question any democracy eventually faces: who controls money and on whose behalf? Andrew Jackson called the central bank a hydra of corruption and a monster built to enrich the few at the expense of the many. He ordered the withdrawal of every federal deposit and moved the money into state pet banks. Biddle fought back by deliberately squeezing the money supply to prove how much the country needed a central bank. This battle highlighted the core conflict. Give control to the government, and money becomes a tool of political power. Give it to private bankers, it becomes a tool of financial power accountable only to the wealthy. The transition to the national banking system in 1863 and later the Federal Reserve in 1913 is often taught as an upgrade from a primitive system to a rational, unified one. On the surface, it was. It created a uniform currency and a money supply that could theoretically be managed in response to economic conditions. However, it also permanently tied the money supply to government debt. Money creation became a function of federal borrowing rather than economic activity. The chaos was gone, but the immediate accountability of the market was gone with it. The Federal Reserve was designed so that no single man, like J.P. Morgan, would ever hold the power to personally organize a national bailout. But in doing so, it created a new kind of power. While J.P. Morgan risked his own money during the Panic of 1907, the Federal Reserve risks yours. When the Fed expanded its balance sheet from $900 billion to $8.9 trillion between 2008 and 2022, it was essentially stamping valid on a blank check. The resulting inflation is a cost distributed slowly and invisibly across every dollar holder. Every monetary system America has tried, from 1,600 currencies to a central bank, makes a choice about who bears the cost when things go wrong. The Wildcat Banking era was chaotic and occasionally ruinous, but it was honest about what money is, a promise made by someone, redeemable or not based on whether you trusted them. The Counterfeit Detector put that truth in writing every week. Today, every dollar in your wallet is the same thing. The only difference is how long it takes to find out if the promise is being kept. What we bought with the Federal Reserve was stability. What we traded for it was accountability. Whether that exchange was worth it depends on whether you were the person holding the notes or the person doing the printing. History shows that the printer never thinks he has printed too much, at least not until the counterfeit detector comes out.